One of my life philosophy, well, it's two main life philosophies, which is don't just do what's right, do what's generous. And then the second life philosophy that I absolutely, my core value hang on is always give more value than you take. When those two align, it creates just this incredible ability to live in an abundance mindset. So when I enter a market, I'm giving as much value as I can first. And I've never really invested any dollars in marketing or advertisement or anything at all for the coaching business, because I just have put the message out there and put the information out there, and then I'll attract the people that align with the message that want to know more.
There's a difference between a dream chaser and a dream catcher.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the Dream Catchers podcast. I'm your host, Jerome, and I think we're down in Texas. We went down south. It's got to be 100 degrees there these days, but we've got my man, Sam Wakefield, on with us today. Sam, how are you, man?
I am fantastic, and you are exactly right. At 6 o'clock this morning, we left out to go to the gym, and it was already just over 90 degrees. So it's going to be a hot one today.
That sounds like so much fun. So, are you born and raised there, or did you learn how to get okay with such intense heat?
Oh no, I'm a Texas boy through and through. I've lived all over the state, lived all over the country, but most of my life has been spent living in the Lone Star State.
Got it. So one thing that's pretty important down there is air conditioning. Now,
Word.
I think you might know a thing or two about air conditioners, and you might have had an exit around that. Am I right about that?
Rumor has it, yeah, I might know a thing or two, be able to speak into the industry just a little bit.
Wow. All right. So what was the name of the company that you exited?
So the company that I owned was it's actually, the company name was called Airtight Home Solutions, but our DBA was Dr. Energy Saver. We were a Dr.
Doc
Energy Saver of the Texas Panhandle.
Dr. Energy Saver. So uh I guess there's special training that folks had to go through in order to work there, man. How
Truth,
did
yeah.
outside of it being hot, like how do you get in a business like that?
It was up until that point in my life, it was one of those places of, you find yourself just going with the currents of life, going with the flow. I had married my wife at the time, moved to the town that she had a career in. She was a library director with a master's degree. And at that point in my life, I was like, well, just got jobs. I can work anywhere. I'll move where you are. And so just got it. I needed a job. So I became a helper on the air conditioning crew one day. And so I'm attic rat pulling ductwork through attics. And a couple of years later, get a couple promotions, and actually I had almost died in the attic one day. It's 150 degrees up there. I'd been up there all day, so I'm soaking wet, sweating. Came across a live 220 wire that hit me on the arm, and the guy next to me had to kick it off of me. And right, so I was kind of done with actually the hard work of doing the installations, and I quit. But it wasn't long after that the owner of the company came back and was like, "Hey, man, I need you to come do sales for me, and you don't have to spend all day in the attic doing that." So went back in and said, "You know what? I already know the industry some, so I might as well try this." And the moment that first sell was made, I knew that was for me. And a year later, as the number one sales, well, I mean, I was the only sales guy for the company, so I was the best and the worst at the same time. But the owner was like, "Man, we need to start this company. Let's open the side of it." And then we were off to the races. I just kind of fell into it, but fell in love with it at the same time, with the whole home services industry, with the trades, realizing that it done right. It's a personal growth plan that just happens with a heart of service that just happens to pay really well at the same time.
Whoa. All right. So you change, like it's tragedy, like because I imagine you're pretty messed up. Did you go to the hospital after you got shocked?
So here's the thing about being one out in the country on somebody's ranch in up in the Texas Panhandle, when the it's very much a good old boy type of mindset around a lot of things. We came out of the attic, realized that I was okay, that I didn't have like heart palpitations or something, and cooled off. The guys let me finish up the job outside. They finished inside and went home for the day. that was
Yee.
that was what happened. I got to sit in the air conditioned van for a little while, not because that I was refusing any kind of help or anybody else. Just don't hear me wrong here. It was much more the mindset was like, I'll be fine in a few minutes. Let me just cool off, and then I got back to work to finish the job. Right? It's just what you do. You have to you finish when you have that a work driver of this like integrity. I committed to this. I have to complete it. Sometimes we might not do things that are the healthiest for ourselves to be that driver personality. But at the end of the day, it turned out okay. There was no lingering side effects, thank goodness. Also, it wasn't if you've ever been shocked with that level of voltage, it's scary and can turn bad, but if you catch it fast enough, it's more of just a surprise than it is actual injury.
I don't know that taste of metal in your mouth. It's pretty rough.
Yeah.
So, you talked about selling, but how'd you get into ownership?
Well, so my one of the biggest blessings well, two different moments in my life that sent me on that journey of entrepreneurship. When I was turned 19, one of my friends at the time gave me my first personal growth book, which was for my birthday. He gave me Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. So that's where I first learned about the cash flow quadrants and the difference in, employee versus specialist, business owner, investor, and all that content. And so from that point forward, my mind was always running around and chasing these visions, and you know had over the years I've been in 5 different network marketing companies, and actually I've done pretty well there, and just try always have the side hustle. And so the being in getting into sales and realizing all of a sudden my income was 4 times in a year what it had ever been before in my whole life. I was like, now I have all this expendable income. What am I going to do with it? But I thankfully had enough personal growth up to that point where I was not just, you know, unruly with it. I was able to manage it some. But the second big moment was when, for personal growth, was really getting in that role with the owner of the company at the time, because he's absolutely believes in personal growth and leaders or readers investing in yourself. He paid to send me through a Dale Carnegie course at the time. So I went through Dale Carnegie, and it was through basically his mentorship in how to be a business owner. That's really what partnered up with him is what drove me into it. It was just took me under his wing. So it's definitely forever grateful to Brian Winkleman up in the Texas Panhandle for getting me started on the path.
I suspect you made Brian a lot of money.
That is definitely was a big deal as well. Yes, we started growing at the pace that I. There was a fun moment. We had gone to a training somewhere, and he was showing his P&Ls to a contractor that he was actually mentoring at the time. So he was using some of our numbers, and the guy leans in and points to this one spot on the calendar where there's this huge bump. He's like, "Wow, what that happened there?" And he looks over and he says, "That's when he started selling for me." And so it was a very intentionally noticeable bump on the P&L charts the second that happened.
So, all right, you sold the interest in that company that you had back to the owner,
Correct.
and then what'd you do? Because
Well,
he's
so
probably
the
still wanted to do something, right?
well, yeah, of course. I mean, so the original idea was just to move across the state down into Austin, Texas, bigger market, very green friendly, and do it again, and reopen the next branch, the next phase of my journey within that organization. So but a couple big things happened. One is the investor that, well, the guy I was going to be partners with turned out to be a lot of red flags started coming up later. So we ended up parting ways, and it was a big salvation that I dodged that bullet. And then the investor that we had, like right at the very last second, so many people I'm sure that listen to this know, pulled out like a week before signing. And so all of this kind of imploded at the same time. So I was left in this moment of which after being on my show, I understand how much you train for these moments. I was left in this moment of, okay, I have this big stack of cash. I have a dream and a vision, and all of this just completely imploded. And so I was like 3 months just kind of wandering around in a circle, trying to figure out what in the world to do because my identity was there, and basically took kind of a step backwards what I thought at the time, but turned out to be one of the biggest springboards in my career. I did my research on heating and air companies in Austin. Then I stepped into a leadership role in the sales team, became the top producer, sales manager, and sales trainer for a small but growing air conditioning company here in Austin. And then in right around 3 years, I helped him 4x the company. I'm sorry, we doubled 4 times in about 3 years. That's what happened. So it was a fun journey, and then I was kind of collateral damage in an exit. Him and his wife were ended up. I don't know what was going on, but it was an all hands on deck meeting one day. We walk in middle of the summer, which is the peak season, and hey, it's been a nice ride, guys. Here's the new owners. And so there was an exit without leadership knowledge of it, which was a really interestingly a fun experience. So that's why I resonated with your story so deeply of just having those moments and not having any control over it, even though you literally wrote the entire sales curriculum and system that the team follows why the company grew. And then all of a sudden they're left in the dark on the exit. So that thankfully at that time I had started podcasting and coaching outside of being in that W-2 role. And so I was there because I wanted to be. So I said, well, you know what? I don't need to work for this huge corporation that just, private equity group that just bought this company. So that's when I stepped into the coaching and training role that I have now.
Well, it sounds like you might be qualified to help people learn how to sell.
Slightly. That's what the numbers across the country are saying anyway. What the metrics show.
So, all right. So you took a job after exiting. Is that really what you wanted to do, or did you do it because that was the opportunity that presented itself? Like you said, you wandered around a little bit, but why that?
Well, that was definitely a swallow your pride, go back a little bit moment. It was more of a desperation move than it was a because I wanted to move. At the same time, so in the moment, it felt like it was really stepping down. But I knew that it wasn't a forever goal. It was more of, well, let's build up a nice big, cash runway again so we can work on the next entrepreneurship project, which I thought at the time was going to be another air conditioning company. And, you know, in retrospect, it turns out that the timeline is about exactly what our intentions were when we started vision casting at the beginning. It just didn't end the way we thought it was going to move into the next thing. But either way, the destination was the same, and the universe aligned it in the way that it knew was going to be the best route to get there.
All right, so I'm gonna take us back because I skipped over this and I shouldn't have. All right, so you get did you get a wire or a check when you sold out of the company?
Oh, it was cash, like piece of paper in hand, handwritten check.
We want the check, baby. I
Yeah.
got one. I got one on Monday. Yeah. You get the check, and so you're looking at the check. I
Mm-hmm.
suspect it's more money than you ever had at one time. I might be wrong, but is it
Oh
more
no, it
money?
was. Yeah, it was
Eh,
good.
Were you happy? Like, did you feel like you did it?
You know, no, actually, it was more of a um, it's another in the moment. Quick aside, I think this is why so many people receive my training so deeply and so heartfelt is I don't train a single thing that I haven't made a mistake and had to learn through the mistakes. It's not just I read it somewhere and retrained it. And so this is one of those, again, one of those moments in retrospect. It was a great experience. In the moment, there was just enough tension between me and my business partner at the time that it was more of like I'll take anything. I'm happy to get out of here type of situations. Now looking back, that's not the case. I was equally as, you know, causing as many issues as anything. I wish I had seen them at the time, but so definitely not happy. It was much more of a only happy to get out of the situation. But the second that happened, it was again a now what? Let's figure something out because now I don't know who I am again.
Yeah, yeah. I find, well, let me ask you, how long did that last? How long did whatever the relief was? It sounds like you were relieved that you were out of the situation. How long did your relief last?
About as long as I was out of the parking lot.
That's a little bit faster
And
than a
then it
lot of
was,
people.
it actually is probably long enough to drive across the size of a 13,000 population town. So about 4 minutes to get home and hug my wife and celebrate for half a minute. Then we're like, okay, then it was now what?
Yeah, 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 yeah. So you get into the new role, you start your podcast, and then you start training folks. You did something really interesting last week. You presented at a conference that you sponsored. Uh,
Mhm.
no selling from stage, just serving.
Right.
Now, talk to me about that because most people who sponsor things fully expect to be able to sell so that they can get their sponsorship back. But
Hmm.
you've got a different approach.
Oh, I do. Yeah. I'm glad you picked up on that. Thank you. That it was very intentional. This is the first time I've been involved with this conference. And I'm good. I'm actually, is it okay if I plug it for a second? Because I would totally
Yeah.
believe in the mission. So it's the American Dream event hosted by a guy named Steven Martinez. He hosts a podcast as well, but it's held in Houston, Texas, so far for the first two events, and it's focused on the blue collar worker and home service and trades business owners in the Hispanic community because it's a very underserved population for any types of trainings or higher level thinking from the business owner leadership management perspective. And so I love the mission. And so I'm supporting the mission either way. But anytime that I enter, it's the same way that I started my coaching business. When I design the way I enter a market, is one of my life philosophy. Well, it's two main life philosophies. One I actually picked up from my mentor Brian Winkleman that I mentioned earlier, which is don't just do what's right, do what's generous. And then the second life philosophy that I absolutely my core values hang on is always give more value than you take. And when those two align, it creates just this incredible ability to live in an abundance mindset. So when I enter a market, I'm giving as much value as I can first. So I've never really invested any dollars in marketing or advertisement or anything at all for the coaching business because I just have put the message out there and put the information out there, and then I'll attract the people that align with the message that want to know more. And so it's the same thing here at this event. I'm there to sponsor. I trained from the stage. I gave them the very most actionable things immediately that they can use and literally the same day change their business. In fact, it was fun because several of the vendors thanked me for the presentation and how they can use it in just selling from their sponsorship booths. But I told Steven, I was like, man, I don't want a booth. I don't even want a sponsor booth. I just want to speak from the stage and pour into your people. And that's how I live and how I believe. If when you just like Zig Ziglar used to say, help enough people get what they want, you can have anything you want. But step one cannot be skipped.
That one cannot be skipped. Wow. Help the people.
Mhm.
Okay. So I would imagine that somewhere on this journey, you didn't always feel abundant. Like there had to be some scarcity. So, how did you get out of that and get back to the abundance? And I don't know if you were abundant before you made the exit, but usually people kind of meander between the two depending
Mhm.
on what their bank account looks like.
Absolutely. Yes. It, I think for me, it's been so much of it is remembering to zoom out sometimes. Like we stay so we find ourselves as stress happens, we start to get those blinders on and zoom closer and closer to a situation. Then we get that, kind of, isolation risk. And so the more that we remind ourselves to zoom out and look at the bigger picture is so helpful in, in that journey. But yeah, no, it wasn't always a an abundance mindset. It was back, um, so many of the impulsive shifts and changes I've made in my life over the years. I'm very, if you're familiar with the Colby score, I'm very, very high on the fast start and almost nothing on any of the other ratings for that list. So I was like, yes, let's do this new idea. But things don't always get completed. And so that's why I rely on my assistants so much. But so it's that same way when things looked like they were getting tough or rough, and you have those wall kicking moments where you just want to beat your head through the sheetrock because you're working so hard and things aren't changing, or you don't perceive things to be changing, even though you may be planting the seeds for the huge harvest that you haven't forecasted into the future of your mind yet. But we get so stuck in the seed planting part and nothing to eat yet that it just forces us into that place. So getting out of it is really zooming out. That's the main thing. Those desperation times of my life, it's been, having the moment to embrace the emotion of it, but not allowing yourself to stay there and, you know, do what you got to do for a minute and then choose to be the winner, right? Know, really go inside yourself and your belief system and remember forward of who you are and who you're becoming. And that is, and where the mission is, where the vision lies. And that's the zoom out moment. Says, you know what, who cares if this is going to pass? If worst case scenario, we'll just, we'll sell all our crap and, fix the situation in the moment. Who cares? It's stuff, but it's the vision and what we're accomplishing and where we're headed which keeps us driving forward. So that's really the thing is, even a little over a year ago I was ready to, I was at this place where I had done so many podcasts and so many shows and so many episodes.
Hey guys, as you might know, a very small percentage of the people who actually listen to this podcast are subscribers. So do us a favor, subscribe. In fact, we did some analytics and we found out that only 25% of the people who listen are subscribers. And our goal is to get that to about 75% over the next 3 months. So do us a favor, hit the subscribe button so you get notified when our new episodes come. We plan to bring immense value to you guys going forward as we continue to improve the content that we create at Dreamcatcher. Your dreams should be real. Let's get back to the show.
And so done so much work in my Facebook group. I didn't know if anybody was even receiving the message or it was resonating with anybody. And then the very next month I get this call like right out of the blue and somebody begging me to come train at their facility. And it was the start of like the whole story of the bamboo, moment, for the company. And it just changed everything like in a moment.
Wow. That one phone call. And I think everybody who creates content is wondering if anybody's looking. I mean, you might see impressions on whatever your social media platform, somebody might like it or comment it, but that isn't truly what we're looking for. We're looking for impacting lives. Now, what's really cool about what you said related to the vision is that the vision is the thing that helps us move forward. Because if we don't have that, then we just kind of stay in place. It's kind of like treading water instead of swimming for the shore or swimming for the boat, depending on where you are and what you're trying to accomplish. How did you find your new vision? How did you figure out what your next was?
That is that that's a fun question because it's one that I've thought about and bounced back and forth the last few years. And I think it wasn't as much of finding it as something new. It's much more of realizing that that's always been my zone of genius, my Goldilocks zone, is helping people, being able to take complex things and break them down into simple ways that people can learn them very quickly. And I didn't realize it until I can't, I, I've really racked my brain to try to remember who I was having the conversation with in the moment. But it was such a heavy revelation that this is what I was in finding the next of what I was called to do, that it just kind of like you have those moments that everything else goes dark around you and you're like stuck in your thoughts for a minute. It hit me. So I'm pretty sure that's probably why I can't remember exactly the person I was talking to in the moment. But they were like, well, think about it your whole life. Go back all the way as back far back as you want to go, and you've always taught somebody something. No matter who you are around, you in any given room, you're going to be teaching somebody something, no matter what the conversation is going on. And so they're like, when you started playing guitar, you learned fast enough. And the moment you hit a level that was high enough that you thought about more than past everyone else, you turned around and you tried to catch everybody up as fast as you could to get to where you were. When you were older, you taught swim. I mean, taught swim lessons professionally for like 8 or 9 years. I love teaching the kids. And they're like, think about it, all the things you've done in your life has been training and teaching. Well, what are you the best at? Train that. And they're like, you're already doing it in the role that you have in your, right now as your sales trainer for your company. Why don't you just help more people? And I was like, oh, why am I so stingy that only the people, I pouring everything I have into my team, which is incredible. And I would, absolutely did that. They're like, but just record what you're saying to them and get it out to everybody else too. And that's really that moment that it started.
So, who is they?
They as in the so within, especially within home services, it's a very tight knit community within, it's probably about the last 5 to 7 years, especially this. It was really fractured until the pandemic, and the industry, all the home services industries came together like I've never seen on, through Facebook groups and through podcasts, and it turned into this humongous tiny community. And so the they is, there's companies, any kind of home people that sell in home for any type of thing. And really the sales conversation is the same, but my heart and where I come from is to the contractor. They're like, there's millions of these of people, men and women, not just in the United States but around the world, that could be, get some value from this message, record it and just put it out there. So there I started my podcast, driving in between my own sales appointments into my voice memo and my cell phone to just record it because somebody needs to hear it. And I just started giving value. And that's the they. It's like all the men and women who literally change people's lives every day by helping them see that what they have is of value that can improve or help their life. And that's who I speak to.
And so, who's the other day? The day that helped you unpack that this is who you should be helping or serving.
Yeah, that's it's the people closest to me, my wife, my mom. There's just so many people, that are in my super close inner circle that, it's funny. I'm this big visionary looking forward and have a lot of times blind spots around not being able to see the forest for the trees when something is so obvious to everybody around me. So thankfully, we've developed this feedback loop amongst our circle of let's do a check-in with each other regularly as we, and what are common denominators we're all seeing that we need to help each other with. And it's been a really healthy conversation with that. So thankfully I have a tighter feedback loop around me now than I used to for that kind of stuff.
Now, I'm really glad you said that because I don't think most people are able to kind of unpack, and not kind of, they're not able to unpack such big epiphanies on their own. I think oftentimes we need outside guidance or questioning or inquiry to help us see what we
Mhm.
need to see so that we can make the progress that we actually want to make. For the folks out there who don't have the support of family, um, would you recommend that they get some kind of coach or advisor to help them go through that process? Because, or do
Oh,
you think that they
absolutely.
should? Okay.
Well, so it's kind of a two-sided answer. It's both sides of the same coin, I would say.
Okay.
Can you do it yourself? Probably, with the right effort and just stumbling through, you know, resource after resource. But, you know, if you're somebody listening to this podcast, I'm sure you don't want to take no ain't nobody got time for that. So when you hire a coach or find a really incredible mastermind or peer group who are all next level. So I mean, something that in our I'm sure this is probably everywhere. Something we talk about in our industry and expression is be the dumbest person and the poorest person in the room, and find that room that you could, with Jim Rohn, you always said you're the average of your five closest friends, and I've always be working to improve that. But yeah, finding a mentor or a coach, and not just finding, hiring, people that, when you can, some free coaching is awesome and it's fun and it's great. The thing is, there's no skin in the game. I know the second I pay for something, I'm going to work harder to make sure it happens so I can get my return on investment. So hiring and paying the bigger money for the better coaches, there's nothing like getting the, I mean, if you've never had that experience with a coach that you pay a lot of money for, it's the progress you make is so dramatically faster. It's unexplainable. It's awesome when that happens. And so, yeah, that's money that will never be a waste. It's to invest in coaches and trainers. It just, you're buying time. It compresses it so much.
Yeah, it's always interesting when I see people negotiate the time and the money because one of those resources is non-replaceable. You can't replenish it. Um, but a lot of people will decide that their money's more valuable than the time.
Oh no, that's when people call me. In fact, I'm glad you said that. I'm actually writing in the. I'll write this into my sales, but basically, it's like you called when you're selling coaching. It's like you called me because you either don't have enough time, don't have enough money, or both, right? And so if you want to solve that, that's why you called, right? So it's like, okay, it's the easy answer. Are you just back? Are you scared of yourself? Are you scared that you're going to put the work in? Is what it is. It has nothing to do with the coaching. It has everything to do with, are you ready to commit?
Yee. Guys, don't get on the call with Sam if you're not serious because you're going to buy, baby.
Well, and really, I think that's why people, it's, I don't teach people all of these crazy, weird, like, always be closing, coffees for closers type of things. It has nothing to do with that. The biggest thing that I help people with is has nothing to do with selling something. It has everything to do with the certainty that your solution is the right thing for them, and not letting them. It has nothing to do with being overbearing or pushy, because what it is very permission based. So we're always asking permission. But when you know that their life is going to be so much dramatically better because of it, especially in some of the things that we do, you're literally saving people's lives because some of the health and safety things that if they don't buy it, They're literally putting their health and their family's life at stake. And if we can't communicate that with certainty and concern and passion and conviction, that's what I train, is like how to communicate better in a way where people truly understand how much you truly care for them and want to see them healthy and living a better life, and not, have safety concerns and breathing issues when we know we have the solution. Man, it becomes this like passionate, like almost sermon. And that's what sales is being so bought into what you're promoting that there's no doubt that it's the right solution. And the rest is, you either want to or you don't. But it's like just serving at the highest level is the main thing.
So let's bring this all the way down to what I'll call is ground zero. The you got to sell yourself, right? When you
Mm-hmm.
pick the new vision, you have to sell yourself. You got to overcome the fear of failure, right? You got to overcome
Oh
the
yeah.
fear of the hard work. And so for the folks out there who are trying to figure out their next, or they're thinking about selling their business and
Mm-hmm.
they don't know what's next, so they're scared to take the next step. What do you say to them on selling themselves on the next thing, even if they're not certain that they know that this next thing is the next thing?
So that so you actually just built two buckets. So let's talk to the people that aren't certain first, and then we'll talk to the certain people. The uncertain ones, if you're, when you give yourself a thermometer check, and if you're less than a 9 in certainty, 9.5 in certainty, if it's not a hell yeah, let's do this, it's a just I think this is a good idea, then you're not ready yet necessarily. It's not that you're not ready in necessarily to make a leap. You've got to figure out and be more certain in the thing. Like, just start moving, figure out the thing, but get real certain in the thing. I like you're if you wait till the timing feels right, you've waited too late. That's the easy one. But just have more clarity in the thing that you are wanting to do, because if when you try to do something for everyone, you end up doing something for no one. So the tighter the niches, the more are the more are the riches, is what I would say to you. Be more certain. For everyone else, that where you're headed, the next thing, and you're thinking more about the timing and finding that next, and getting to that. That's that one, which is I'm the guy. In fact, even the uncertain people would probably look at my life and be like, wait a minute, you weren't certain when you made this jump. Because I will tell you, leap in the net will appear. The universe is working all night for you, even while you're asleep. So it all comes back to alignment with your core values, really, is when you set up your own personal standards that you refuse to compromise on in your consistencies of life, your morning routines, your nutrition, your fitness, your personal growth, your relationships, your spiritual journey. And this is not a religious thing. It's just whatever you do to align with your core values that you should be doing for your belief system. And then working on the other smallest piece of the pie is whatever skills that you need to have for what you're wanting to do. But when you get all of those in alignment with your core values, and that's solid, the universe will align and just incredibly pave the way for you. Take this step. All you need to know is the best next step, not the next best step, the best next step. Change that word substitution in your brain, and then you're off to the races.
Well, what's the difference between those two things?
There's a big difference. So we've always heard, take all right, what's the next best step? Well, that's almost this mental. This is a lot. What I love is the psychology of phrasing and words. The next best step gives almost a mental picture of it's almost a second place or B option, or the also ran option. Whereas you're in a moment and you're making a decision moment, you have to as is the moment, and then assess, look at all of the components, and then take your, from the education and the information you have in the moment, the best next step. So the best next step is what you in the moment know should be the best one to take, instead of the next best step, which is plan A didn't work out. Let's take plan B, I guess.
So, I mean, it sounds like solitary to me,
A
right?
lot of it. Yeah, so much of it's go inside, and it's knowing who you are, it's your belief system, right? If you know you're a winner and everything you touch is going to be is going to win, then that's awesome, because now you have the courage to take the steps. And a car that's sitting still can't turn, but one that's moving, heck, you can turn all the way around if you need to, but not till you're taking action and moving.
Man, that sounds like a thing my mom told me. She didn't talk about turning the car, but she just said if you sit in the car with the flashers on, nobody's going to stop to help you. But if you start pushing it, people will pull over and want to participate in helping you get the thing done.
You got it.
Um, Man, Sam, you're giving me all kinds of good stuff. What I thought was really cool, and I never made this connection before, as you were talking about core beliefs and religion or spirituality, I was like, well, isn't that what religion and spirituality is all about? Like defining what your core beliefs are, defining your values, and helping you see those clearly, and then holding you accountable to the fact that you proclaim that these are the values and the morals that you're
Right.
supposed to live out.
Sure.
Um, Now, you said something and then you came back, and I was like, okay, should I just leave it? But I want to go back because you talked about certainty, right? And then you said, leap and the net will appear.
Right.
So the certainty that the net will appear seems like the underpinning, the fact that universal law is universal law. But
Yeah.
is there a but, or do I need to know the thing? Because the way that we've typically described that is if I want to leave North Carolina and go to Texas, I just need to start going west,
Hmm.
right? I don't need to know your address right now.
Right.
I just need to start heading west. And then as I progress, I will see more. And maybe I should go down to I-10 because I might be able to get there off of
Right.
I-10. Or maybe I need to be on 4. I'm not sure, but I know that if I get on 85 and start heading west on 85, I'm gonna start going that way.
Hmm.
And this next best that you talk about, well, when I get closer, I'll be able to make a decision, another decision, and then there's another decision. But
Right.
I'm refining myself. But the North Star of the Lone Star State is what all I need to get moving instead of having to know that, I'm at 123 Main Street in Austin, Texas. But I don't want to put words in your mouth. Is that kind of what you were offering, or am I off?
Yeah, it is. It's a little bit of both, I think. Um, and I'm glad you circled back on this, because it's one of those that I think part of it is depending on where you are in your own personal journey, the pendulum could swing a little bit one way or the other. If you need to be, do we need to wait? Well, the certainty has much more to do with doing the right amount of pre-work before you jump. Um, even if you have that general idea, but you've done the pre-work that the right amount of runway and everything that you need, or at least a good idea, then that's definitely that. But it there's so many nuances, I think, of the individual's risk for, tolerance for risk, and their own family dynamics and other dynamics that are going on, that it goes back and forth. But you're right. I did kind of say the opposite side of both of the same things, but at the same time, we have to hold both of those as truths at the same time, and then make, again, it really comes down to that best next step. Is it this or is it that? It's not a hard and fast rule, because we all have such different abilities in the pace that we run at, all these things. So that's a really hard question to know,
Mm,
at least from
man.
my current vantage point and perspective. Ask me again in 5 years, I might have a totally different answer, I'm sure.
Well, I think the uncertainty is the thing that makes life exciting, right?
Hmm.
Like if you knew the outcome, what the exact outcome, I think it gets old quick
Right.
because there is no chance of failure. There is no um not knowing what's going to happen when you turn the corner. Like
Hmm.
watching the same movie over and over again, reading the same book, listening to the same song, like eventually it gets dull. And so for humans, I think we need some of that uncertainty.
Oh, absolutely. Especially as entrepreneurs. I mean, that's a huge portion of why we do what we do is to figure this problem out that's a space that needs service. Or, it's just that we're wired that way anyway. And I think that's probably why years ago, even before I really was thinking about entrepreneurship, I just enjoyed outside sales so much. Is everything is different, and it's a problem you have to figure out that's complex, and communicate between communication and the technical and all the things together. It's just never dull. And then learning the entrepreneurship is that on steroids is even cooler. So I 100% agree with you on that.
Man. Sam, I could talk to you all day, man. This has been so enriching for my soul to listen to you talk about the the journey that you've been on, the risks that you were willing to take, the things that you've overcome in order to get to the place where you can foundationally, fundamentally just live out your values on a daily basis. And, I think that leads to a level of authenticity that most people are afraid of.
Hmm.
But you sit firmly in that. You you exude that, and in exuding that, I think you're making not only your dreams possible or making them a reality, but others see that as motivation, and potentially that becomes inspiration that they can live that way
Hmm.
because it works out. When you mentioned that you got the call after creating the content for all the time when you were thinking about turning your back on what you were doing, I think it's just another example of dreams becoming a reality.
Hmm.
And the fact that your gifts will make room for you.
Right.
And I think there's so many folks out there who have enjoyed success and then they feel trapped by that success.
Hmm.
They feel trapped that uh, things won't work out if they're not doing what they've done in the past to get success.
Hmm.
Somebody wrote that crazy book about what got you here won't get you there. And so there comes a point where a transition is important, it is necessary, and you've been willing to do that on multiple occasions, and you're doing what you do now from a place of service and a
Hmm.
desire to improve the human condition. And so for that, I just want to thank you and tell you that I see that you're a dream catcher, and I appreciate what you're doing for the world.
Thank you, man. I absolutely appreciate that. It definitely means a lot coming from you. I love what you're doing to in this space as well, and I appreciate the message that you're getting out there because, man, it's needed for. After we talked before, I've done a lot of mental work on what we recorded about, and it's helped me a lot. So I'm grateful for your message as well.
Man, this has been such an uplifting program for me, y'all. Um, Sam, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
And to our listeners, you heard it from Sam. Don't just do what's right, do what's generous. Your dreams should be real. We'll catch you on the next episode.